Some people really thought this house of cards would never fall, huh? To recap the car market post-quarantine for anyone who's young or new to this situation, the car market began to skyrocket as stimulus checks went out, inflation rose, car chips were in shortage, clout culture exploded, and many clout buyers with government checks would line up to buy a dwindling supply of cars, but with a now drastically increased demand. This was further fueled by banks being approved by the government to give very risky loans to underqualified or even unemployed individuals, all in hopes of stimulating the economy. Just keep selling something now, we'll figure it out later. Car dealers were so powerful these past few years that they began experimenting with insane markups, and boy were they getting bold. So again, for people who are unfortunate enough to never have seen the 2019 prior car market, there was a point in time where you could actually buy cars regularly underneath MSRP. Buying at MSRP was seen as a loser thing to do, as anyone with any amount of pride, even the shyest of shy people, would still negotiate with dealers, because you don't even have to talk to negotiate sometimes. The power was in our hands, the consumer's hands, pre-2020. So fast forwarding to 2022, we saw purchasing power move away from us, the consumers, and be handed to the dealerships, or really stealerships in this case. Car dealerships would really be out here with Civics that had double the markup. That's right, a 38 grand Civic with a limited edition color would have rows of Redditors lined up to be the first to buy it just because it was yellow. Dog, you could just wrap the car yellow for like 3 grand if you really want yellow that badly. Why were people paying 70 grand for a Civic in 2022? Sorry that I'm raising my voice here, but this is actually wild that this happened on multiple occasions. It wasn't even just one guy. Clearly it wasn't. You're gonna learn this whole video that it wasn't just a few people. It was all of America, all of the world really. But the thing is, the cope was insane on social media back in 2022. Actually thought it was an investment. They were investing by buying these rare limited edition cars, even though it's a freaking Civic, and this happened with all vehicles, trucks, SUVs, hatchbacks, sedans, compact cars, even base model trims for some trucks were pushing 70 grand, and mini trucks are regularly selling for over 100 grand in 2022. Never in the history of ever has car markup been as wild as it has been in the past few years. I hate that some of my most viewed videos in the past few years are videos of me just being an extremely depressed sad boy as I'm browsing car gurus, crying about all the cars none of us enthusiasts can afford anymore, while some wannabe tech bros laugh and say, I actually still have the money for it, knowing full well that they're just gonna loan the car for 84 months at 16% APR and not actually be able to afford it. And just so you know I'm not hallucinating or exaggerating, here are raw statistics regarding vehicle prices post-pandemic and how much they changed. 3% each year is what normal inflation is, by the way. That's what it has been for basically the entirety of the economy. So in the past 5 years, cars should have just been 15% higher. Now that we have 15% as a baseline, let's see where we ended up. In just 1 year, from 2020 to 2021, car prices spiked 17.2%. In 1 year, it already beat the 5-year average inflation rate. So where did we end up 5 years later then, from 2019? Well, in 2024, Subarus went up 14%, making them the only company to actually be below the normal inflation and reasonably priced, which is likely why they've actually seen an increase in sales figures in the past 5 years, especially compared to the other Japanese brands. Good job, Subaru, for not being evil. Please fix your head gaskets though. It gets worse from here. Like, it can only get worse from here. Subaru is actually a complete outlier. The total average was 34% across all brands, making them more than double what the average inflation should have been. And the worst offenders like Jeep, I don't know why I said other luxury brands, like Jeep is a luxury brand, but the point is Jeep did 54% in the past 4 years, and many luxury brands were 42%. Some specific models were as high as 60 or 70%. That's why it literally feels like cars are inflating at rates double or even triple of what they're supposed to be inflating at, because they are statistically and factually They are. Straight up. Never give us Gen Z buyers the pull yourself up by the bootstraps BS ever again. Did our wages go up triple or even double the inflation rate? Not even close. But my heart goes out to all of those in younger Gen Z, even just middle of the road Gen Z, people who are just a few years younger than me. They can't even fathom buying a Mustang for twice the price I bought mine for. I already said this example in a previous video, I'll bring it up again. I one time had an argument with someone who would not believe that I bought my Mustang for $27,000 in 2017, and it was crazy because he had bought his Mustang for 54 grand, so obviously it was hurting. He was really upset that I basically had more or less the same car for literally half the price. This is not normal inflation. We now have the data to prove that there aren't just a few clout buyers in your local area ruining prices. Nationwide, we've been ripped off by these dealerships and manufacturers. And the new used car market is just as bad as new cars because, surprise, used cars can only exist if new cars are bought in the first place. So someone has to buy new if you want to buy used, which is why when the new car market became as insane as it was from 2020 onwards, the used car market became equally as stupid. 10-year-old commuter cars like grocery getters were still selling for 10 to 15 grand, and 5-year-old used ones were still going for basically 2019 era new car prices of 20 to 25 grand. Again, this is for grocery getters like base model Civics, Corollas, and Camrys and whatnot. And again, this is really painful because I know a lot of people where they used to work a part-time job in high school, they were a senior in 2016, and they had super high hopes. You know, they're gonna go to university, they're gonna graduate in 2020, and oh no, they just came out to the worst car market ever, but they need a car to obviously get to their job. Oh, okay, well, let's just go even cheaper. Maybe we can go on Craigslist and still buy a $1,000 1990, a 30-year-old used Mazda Miata. Surely a 30-year-old used Mazda has to be affordable for a young Gen Z buyer. Just kidding, it still costs 10 grand. For a 30-year-old car that's super rusted and probably will break down on them. Realistically, if you want a car that's reliable, you want 10 to 15 years used, because even the most reliable of reliable Japanese cars, rust will eventually get to them, especially in the Midwest, especially in the Rust Belt, or anywhere that it snows. That's not me making fun of Mazda or any car from the 90s, that's just a fact of life. Most people aren't car people, so they don't preserve super old cars that well. By the time 2023 came around, we saw the first glimpses of some car values declining a measly 2 to 3%, with some luxury brands going down 10%, but they're luxury brands, so they're usually well over 100 grand, so 10% wasn't exactly making them super affordable to anyone anytime soon. Admittedly, it was nothing to celebrate over, so no one really believed that a car market crash was still going to happen anytime soon. Most dealers, in fact, were still marking up cars easily 20 to 30% over. So we didn't have the crazy 50 to 100% double value Civics like we had in the year before, but buying a 60 grand truck for 75 to 80 grand still wasn't exactly anything to be thrilled over. Dealerships were still cocky and consumers were still stupid enough to feed into their greediness. But then 2024 rolled around. And now you see a shift in my voice, and we start to get closer to the topic of this video. By the start of the 2024 year, a lot more cars began to stagnate in price, and most car dealerships would actually have to stop marking up certain vehicles to get some units to move. Boo-hoo, they can't scam us anymore. I don't feel sorry for these car dealerships, and I'm never going to. While cars were finally selling for MSRP again, I need to remind you that this MSRP is still much higher than pre-pandemic prices. So as 2024 began nearing its end, I just kind of let out a sigh. At this point, I became hopeless for the car market reset, and I assumed that all the investors and all the people naysayers were correct, that this was going to be the new normal. There were not going to be 20 and 30 grand cars anymore, they were going to be 60 grand. Deal with it. Then December 2024 rolls around, and dealerships realized way too few people have been walking into their doors. The start of 2024 was already slower than 2023 by a decent margin, and Q3 and Q4 of 2024 were extremely underwhelming. All of a sudden, selling cars at MSRP just wasn't going to bring customers in. But oh no, manufacturers are already shipping out 2025 models en masse to dealership lots. How are the dealerships going to embarrassingly explain to their manufacturers that they don't have the space to store 2025 models that are incoming because they haven't even moved enough 2024 models? The manufacturers manufacturers probably stated back to them, it's okay. Winter sales are usually slow. It may continue through January, but once people get their tax returns, things will pick up drastically, especially by spring of next year. Just offer some holiday rebates. That'll get a few customers in the door. So some dealerships, they held on to their MSRPs, but they did indeed add a couple $1,000s in rebates in hopes of enticing a few customers to walk in their doors and clean up 2024's remaining inventory. They wouldn't get those customers.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
2025 January comes, still no customers. 2025 February arrives, still not enough customers. It is now the end of 2025 March at the time of me making this video, and customers still aren't arriving because the entire economy is slowing to a halt. Earlier this year in January, I was walking around in a Dodge dealership to just glimpse at the new Challenger Charger EV thing, whatever you want to call it, and saw that it was marked down $3,000. I couldn't help but crack a bit of a smile, especially when I walked around and saw the other cars at the dealership, from Durangos to Rams, and they not only had the $2,000 holiday rebate from last year, they were also marked down for the same $3,000. It has been over 5 years since I had seen the word mark down at dealerships. But wait, it gets even better. So there's this YouTuber called Untamed Motors who goes around dealerships scouting prices, which is something that I also like to do, especially on Sundays when most of them are closed and I don't have to deal with salesmen breathing down my neck. I was shocked at the prices he was seeing because at this point I haven't visited a dealer since January, but some of these cars were now marked down $5,000, with some trucks being marked down $10,000, and some Ford Broncos specifically being marked down as high as $20,000.
We have so many various trimmed Broncos here, to include the Bronco Raptor, which is seeing a $15,000 to $20,000 discount off of MSRP.
I immediately went online to see if I could find results near me, and boy was I blown away when I realized that this is now a nationwide trend. Many cars are being marked down by several thousand. How has no one bought them yet, is what I started wondering. But when I went online and found lots of videos discussing the rise of automotive debt, the potential incoming recession, and the overall consumer fatigue in purchasing cars, the reality is people couldn't buy these cars even if they wanted to. It doesn't matter if they're marked down 20 grand, because that's still not enough. As March rolls in, many dealers are still stagnating. The lots are getting more packed each time I visit, so clearly no one is buying the new inventory. Usually this isn't a problem, but this time many manufacturers, including EV companies like Tesla, have far overproduced cars these past few years because they expected the market to keep growing infinitely and hit magical projections that they conjured up based on the market that was already built on a house of cards. The solution though is still simple. If they want to dump this excess inventory, they should just reduce prices so the demand grows again to relieve them of this supply excess. Unfortunately, that won't give them the profit margins they want. Do not bail these companies out. Crash those prices. Do not repeat 2008 like what happened with GM. There are still way too many potholes in my city and all across the United States, and my tax dollars should go towards fixing my country, not repaying the debts of billion-dollar corporations. So to any car guys watching this video, do not go out and buy a car just yet. Let's not all rush out to buy these cars, otherwise we're just going to reset ourselves back to square one. Let them suffer. Truth be told, I feel like I don't actually need to warn people, because something tells me that there are no longer enough stupid buyers to sustain this ridiculous dealer markup that they were preying on, which is good. This dealer markup was always greedy Delulu hoo-ha. Sooner or later, these dealerships and manufacturers will give in, and even prestigious luxury cars and sports cars will normalize again. $1.7 trillion of automotive debt is insanely deep. I don't think many people, even the dumbest of dumb clout buyers, are capable of buying an expensive car, even if they wanted to right now, even if they learn that the prices are much lower now after watching this video. A lot of banks are also rejecting their stupidity, because I'm not gonna lie, because banks were enabling them by taking these risky loans, but a lot of banks have really stopped doing that, and even credit card companies are starting to get picky again with who they loan money out to, because we're all short on cash now. Everyone is learning the consequences of their actions. Keep waiting, keep building your wealth, know what you want, and when the time finally comes, buy the car you've been dreaming for at the price you've been dreaming of. Hold strong, and maybe in another year's time, we'll finally get the true normal car market that we deserve, the one that existed 5 years ago. a true reset to where we left off. Thanks for watching. Leave a like in hopes of the future, and if you enjoy automotive content, make sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. Other than that, see y'all next time. Bladed Angel out.